Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Gary A. Swaby, and you're now listening to the Snowfall Aftermath. And I'm here with Mr. Richard Bailey Jr. How are you doing, Rich?
Doing good, Gary. What's up, listeners and viewers?
What's up, indeed? This week we are recapping season 4 of Snowfall, episode that was 9, right?
That's correct.
Yep. This was a crazy episode, like insane, like probably like the best episode this season, hands down.
hmm
And we're gonna get into everything that happened, and go through all of our takeaways, and we have some questions, based on what happened in this episode at the end of this show as well that we're gonna answer. But yeah, it's important that you guys engage with this content also because we want to hear what you guys thought of Snowfall. You guys are just as important as us. This is a community
hmm
show, so we want to get your takes on everything that happened is in this episode, especially because it was so juicy. So leave your comments, let us know what you thought about it, what you think's gonna happen next, and also hit the like button, subscribe if you enjoy the content, because all of these things help us do this every single week. So every
Absolutely.
single week that Snowfall was on TV. So yeah. But we have other shows too. We recap Power. We recap the Marvel shows like Falcon and Winter Soldier. And Walking Dead. So there's a lot of other content that you guys might be interested in. So definitely check out the channel. But yeah, let's get right into these takeaways because I know the people are waiting, and I'm waiting because this is going to be a good one. So last week I went first, so this week you get to do the honors, Rich.
Uh-oh. Okay.
So go ahead. What are your takeaways?
Well, first and foremost, let me say I really like the title of the episode, Sleeping Dogs. One of my favorite games that I played not too long ago.
Oh yeah, that was a
Uh,
good game.
yeah, that was awesome. It's definitely a sleeper hit. But a very appropriate title for, as you mentioned, one of the best episodes this season. I mean, I think I would say it is the best episode of the season, but I guess we have to see what happens next week. Um, my takeaways was, let's start off with Franklin. I mean, we've been talking about this character from the start of the season. Obviously, after taking all those shots from Melody last season, you have a lot of questions as to, well, what is his state of mind? How is he operating? And we thought as the season was going on, obviously he was still trying to find his way back to the character that we knew from the beginning of this show. So how they handle his character growth this season, it has been a little bit of a slow process. We've seen him be sloppy, make bad mistakes, but this episode here, this is the Franklin that I like and have come to respect in previous seasons of the show. Obviously, very much a take charge attitude. The way that he dealt with the whole situation with Man Boy in this episode, tried to be a lot more calculating in how he was doing his action, and that's what we need to see more so from him moving forward. Not everything is going to be great because obviously he has a lot that's going on in the next episode after this with Elton and Reed, which we will get into later. But yeah, I mean, the one thing I will say is, people might laugh when I say this. I did say before that Franklin was a bit delusional in how he was acting and reacting to all these different situations. And I did feel that at the beginning of this episode, when he actually thought that he could step to Jerome and say, "No, man, I got to stop you from going out here doing something," and Jerome whooped his ass. So that was a very interesting dynamic to see. But again,
Yeah.
he did end up convincing him in the end. Yeah, your sister and your wife. At least they're going to know that I did everything I could to stop you. And then that, I think that definitely got him. That got him to calm down.
Yeah.
But again, as this episode progressed, we saw Jerome just taking people out left and right. That
Yeah.
was, yeah, that was fantastic. That's my next takeaway. Jerome is a character. He said in that last episode when Louis got shot, he said, "Yeah, they say, yeah, I'm gonna get these guys. I'm gonna get." Well, he didn't say that. Actually, he swore a lot more than that. But yeah, I mean, and he lived up to that in this episode. The whole thing about how they took out Manboy. They knew that Manboy, even though they had told him where they were going to meet, they knew he was still going to hit up old girl to try and see what information she knew, whether or not she was playing him. And of course, we saw how that ended for Manboy, getting stabbed by her, then getting shot by Franklin. And Franklin is hilarious. He talked too much because this guy was still talking where he got shot. So that was entertaining. But yeah, Jerome is a character in this episode. Yeah, just badass, take charge, took them out, took out Manboy's boys that were just sitting in the car. That was cold-blooded. They didn't even see him coming, and he just shot them all up in the car. That was crazy. And then, of course, then it came to Khadijah, because she is the one that has been obsessed with getting Leon. So I think the scene where, obviously we see that her friends, they were turned on her because, she kept upping the bounty, trying to get them to get the job done, or for anybody for that matter. So to see them turn on her at just like that so quick, that shows you how fast people can turn on you when they see opportunities to better themselves, even more so, because at the end of the day, they were thinking of just about the money, but Franklin got him a house. And I have to say, I like how they tied back to what Franklin was doing in the past seasons, because we knew that he was into this real estate thing. So for him to use that as an opportunity to convince them, very smart writing, for sure. Because I'm pretty sure some people who just started watching Snowfall will probably question, well, how did he get how did he get into this real estate thing? But obviously, if you've been watching the show, you know about his background with his mom and everything else. So very smart way to convince them to turn on her. And then, of course, when they do get to the place where they set up Khadijah, once again, Jerome, very cold-blooded, because Leon gave her a chance. He gave her a chance trying to ask for forgiveness. She didn't. She said, no, I'm going to hunt you. I'm going to keep on hunting you down. And you saw how that turned out. Jerome didn't think twice about it. Bam. So I am curious to see, though, because, it does feel like, Jerome is one of those characters. He was able to get his revenge. But we do know that Scully is still in the picture. And even though Scully is, obviously, he's processing everything now, all of what happened to Manboy. He probably don't care too much about Manboy, but obviously his wife and his daughter he cared about. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen with him moving forward. And I don't think that, if eventually he does go after and seek revenge on Franklin, Jerome, or anyone in the family for that matter, I don't think it's going to happen next week. It may happen sometime next season, because they want, it's going to be a situation where Jerome or whether it's Louis, Jerome, or whoever, they're going to let their guard down, and they're not going to be expecting anything to happen. Then all of a sudden, this guy comes out of nowhere and kills. It might be Louis, and that would really tear up Jerome, or it might be Jerome. But I feel like Jerome, he took action in this episode, definitely seen as the gangster, tough guy, did everything that you would expect to be done. But that's going to have consequences later, for sure. Maybe you don't. People might not see it right now, but they got to know what's coming down the road. So we'll see about that. Two other quick takeaways I want to mention. Let's talk about Irene. Yes, your favorite person, Irene, the reporter that everybody was scared about. Irene, clearly, when she got drugged the previous episode, I think, I don't know what she was thinking when Reed said, let me get you a drink. Because I think we can all agree that he probably spiked that drink.
Oh, yeah.
And that was it. And then she has this accident on the road. She falls asleep at the wheel. And then he finishes what he started. Now, the question I would have for Reed is, why the hell didn't he kill her last week? Because this is what started this all again, right? It's his fault that she still felt compelled to talk about what happened, to talk about what's going on with this investigation. And that is the reason why I don't understand why the character would be so angry that she would go on a radio station and continue to talk about this stuff when you had the opportunity to take her out last week. So we got our answer. It made Reed a much more ruthless character, I mean, he was already ruthless before, but now he's going to do whatever he can do. And the thing that is so crazy about it is that he's already out. I mean, I think we get the sense that he's already out because of how his interaction was with his boss, the fact that Gustavo is now taking over his job. You get a sense that he is out, but he is still doing whatever he can to eliminate the people. So the way he looks at it, if I have to go down, they're going to also go down with me. So yes, this is why Irene had to go down. But Alton is next on the list, and I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with that interaction next week. That actually is my final takeaway, because we're going to talk about this later. We saw the preview for the next episode, that little preview trailer.
Yeah.
So it looks to me like it's the Black Panther Party versus the CIA, which is going to be very interesting because Alton, he's been representing the party. So I want to see, and seeing him with a gun, I had to laugh when I saw that. So I'm curious to see how that interaction is going to go down. The trailer will make you believe that, there's obviously some issues that, between Franklin, that this makes things between Franklin and Teddy escalate even further, and it's not all positive. But the thing is that, once again, I have to question, does Reed not realize that this is his fault? Because he could have taken out Irene. And I don't really think the character was interested in trying to take her out, before trying to take out Alton when the news first came out about this thing. But the fact that she continued to talk about this, he could have prevented all of that. So I kind of feel like, that was very sloppy on his part. But again, it gets to the point of, well, he needs to take action and really get more violent with his methods. And that's exactly what he's going to do now, because we saw it at the end of this episode. So we'll see what happens next week as far as Alton is concerned. It's going to be a lot to look forward to. But once again, just a phenomenal episode, all around. And I'm pretty sure that if John Singleton was still here, he would be very proud of the work that they're putting into the show, because this felt like this is the episode you will remember for a while, because so many things happened, so many characters that they got rid of. But then it does leave questions about what's going to happen next week, because we already know that if you look at the bad guys, there's a lot of bad guys that got killed. So I'm only questioning as, when is somebody Franklin cares about going to get killed? And that could very well happen next week, because I feel like it has to happen. But we'll see.
Yep. Great takeaways. And my takeaways are gonna kind of mimic yours, but I'll just add my layer to it, and then we'll get to discussing it. You can also chime in as well. But yeah, a lot of crazy stuff happened, and it's getting real juicy. So let's start with this. You kind of mentioned it at the start of yours as well. So when Franklin, was fighting Jerome to stop him from retaliating, that was a pretty interesting scene, and I think it's interesting because it's the most human we've seen Franklin be in a while. So obviously, he took an L in that fight, because we know he's not a physical match for Jerome, because Jerome is, bigger, older, stronger. He's got that uncle strength, so there was no way Franklin could be a threat to him. But just the fact that he was willing to take that beating to stop him from going to the retaliation and probably dying, because obviously Manboy was ready for them. They knew they were coming. So that this has been a season where Franklin has kind of just been walking around emotionless. Like, it seems like sometimes it seems like he doesn't care about anything anymore, and he's just like this cold, calculating guy who just who's heartless. But this showed us that he does have a heart, and he does care about those closest to him, and those that have been loyal to him. I guess, we also saw that he saved Leon as well earlier this season, so that was kind of like another moment where, Franklin was showing that, he is passionate about those who are loyal to him. But yeah, this is just another example of that, and I think it was good to see, because it adds more depth to the character, to know that, he does care about these people, he's not just using them for his own gain and stuff. So I think that was a great scene. And you know, he was successful obviously because Jerome, he didn't end up retaliating. And then, you know, they were able to put together a plan with using T. So that takes me to my next takeaway, right? So obviously we know what happens. They use T to you know, set up Manboy, and this eventually leads to his death. So I will touch on that in a sec. But with T, I'm just curious about what's next for her now, like, because the way they left it, it's like, you know, it was after the shootout and everything happened, and there were dead bodies in her home and outside of her home, and they were just like, yeah, you better call the cops, tell them, you know, he tried to rob you and you stabbed him, and then, you know, used the gun to shoot him or whatever. And then, you know, Franklin was like, as for the bodies outside, you're good at lying, so be creative and tell them something. Like, leaving her like that, it's like, you don't know what she's gonna say to the police. Like, she could say anything. And like, you know, now that you're gone, it's like she's gonna feel like she can do anything now. So it's like, you know, that's kind of dangerous. Like, they should have at least stayed to watch her make the phone call to the police or something like that, to call in, you know, the incident.
I agree with that. I guess they were going to say, because he is the one that's helping to take care of her brother now with the money, that they will make you believe, well, she will never do anything now against him. But I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I thought the same of Khadijah's friends after they assisted with, you know, basically setting her up. I mean, a lot of these people, they just think that they will trust them, you know, afterward because of what happened. But I wouldn't, you know, if this, you know, I feel like in another situation, you would want to take them out as well to make sure that there's no loose ends. But they said, no, we're still, they still are going to be content to cooperate. So I'm curious to see what happens also with her, if she's going to be in future episodes, because it feels like Franklin just kicked her to the curb and has nothing to do with her anymore.
Yeah, and that could very well be the case. Like, it could just be that we never see the character again. But still, you know, I would have thought, you know, there would be something more there. Like, they would, you know, like he would at least stay as she called the cops or something like that, you know. But it just ended kind of abruptly with T, and it's like, okay, now that, you know, story arc is over with, I guess. So, but
yeah.
But
you're right.
I have a feeling we might see her again, though. Maybe, you know, next season or whenever. Like, we may see the character again, I think. But I guess we just gotta wait and see. So yeah, as for Manboy, that kind of came as a shock a little bit, because I thought this character would stick around for maybe another season, because he was a good antagonist, like, in terms of, you know, like a character to oppose Franklin. I feel like Manboy was good because he was charismatic, he was funny, but also ruthless at the same time. So he was good for the show, I think. Like, he made good TV. So I'm surprised that, you know, they killed him. Well, I'm not surprised that somebody died, like that people died, because it's about that time that should be happening. And, you know, we kind of discussed that last week, but I'm just surprised that, you know, I thought maybe Scully would go out first or something, but they're saving Scully, it seems like, for later on or something. But yeah, it's just like, wow, like, you know, it was just that easy. Like, they killed Manboy. Obviously, you know, they arranged for there to be like a meeting somewhere else, and Manboy knew that T was setting him up, so he went to T's home. So yeah, I guess you could say it wasn't that simple, because you know, he knew that they were double crossing him, and then Franklin knew that he was probably going to end up coming to T's instead of the meeting location. So like, it was a bit complex in how they got to that conclusion. But yeah, it was just over. So like, this episode was just crazy how, like, the bodies were just dropping, like, just back to back to back. It's like, wow, like just like that, like these we've been watching these characters and it's like, wow, it's over now,
Yeah.
so but yeah, that was great though. It was good to finally see Franklin and his team kind of get a one up, because we've been saying over the past few weeks that it seems like Franklin is, he's making too many mistakes, and he's not in a good position. So it's like he was able to kind of tip the scales in this episode. So that was kind of good to see, I guess. But we lost some pretty interesting characters.
Oh yeah, and the man boy has been around for a while, so that definitely is something that you will for sure remember.
Yeah, indeed. And then Irene, another victim of this episode. So I enjoyed that whole build up to her death, because it was like you didn't know if Reed was actually being serious, like if he was like really cooperating, because we know that he's he has kind of lost his position a little bit, like you mentioned. Gustavo was kind of like taking over, so it's like wow, is he really doing this? And then it kind of like there were a few moments where it was like they were trying to make you think he was going to do something, but then he didn't, kind of thing. And then you had the whole part with the drink, and Irene was like very aware as well. It's like she was looking around like to see if this is a setup or something, like, so it was like, she's obviously being paranoid, which is natural. And then the whole part with the drink, and when he ordered the drink, that's when I was like, is he slipping something in there or what? but
yes,
yeah,
yes.
But then they continue to talk, and she recorded his story and everything, and it's like I was thinking like, okay, so if he slipped something in her drink, is she just gonna pass out like while they're talking or what? And then then we had the whole part where they were exiting the bar, and they got in their cars and everything, and then Irene waits for Reed to pull out and leave the car park. That was pretty cool, like, because it's like, yeah, she's still paranoid, she still thinks something might happen, so she's waiting until he leaves, so like she knows that, okay, I'm safe now. And then we see that happen, so it's like, okay, I guess this is for real. Reed is really like just giving everything up. And then we see some other stuff happen, of course, and then it cuts back to Irene in the car, and then we see what happens. She passes out behind the wheel, crashes. Reed comes in after the crash, and then he kind of I guess he has something in there, like some substance on his glove, and he kind of makes her pass away. He kills her, but it makes it look like an accident, of course. So yeah, it finally happened. Like, Irene is no more, and I guess the story dies with her. Well, not quite, because Alton is still there, but yeah, like, we know that Irene was the driving force behind this story coming out, and she had more exposure planned to come out. So now that she's gone, they can kind of slow down the story, I guess. But that leads to, of course, the next point, which is Alton, and Reed knows that he's like kind of like the last straw of this this whole exposure thing, because he was hanging with Irene the whole time and stuff, and giving her information. He was like the main source and everything. So it's like, now that Irene is gone, I think Reed knows that Alton isn't just gonna like sit down and be cool with that. Like, he's gonna know, even though it looks like an accident, like a crash or whatever, Alton is gonna know something is fishy about it, because he knows the depth of what they were doing. Like, he knows the significance of the story they were breaking. So he knows that the CIA is gonna retaliate somehow. So Alton is gonna know that this wasn't an accident. And that is going to anger him, and that is going to make him want to speak out even more, probably because he's that kind of guy. He was a Black Panther, so he knows about fighting for what he believes to be right and everything. So Reed sees him as a threat, of course, and because he's, you know, still at this moment he's still cool with Franklin, so he goes to Franklin first, and then, you know, he kind of asks the question again, you know, what are we gonna do about your dad? Because Franklin obviously knows about Irene. He saw the news broadcast. His mother looked over at him like, I guess his mother thought it was him or something. Like,
yeah, she had a big reaction. That I was like, yeah, she got shocked then. Yeah.
So like, you know, he asked Franklin like, what are we doing about your dad? You know, so and that kind of leads to, you know, next week. So but yeah, before we get to that though, before we get to discussing all that stuff, like, I just want to say, you know, props to, you know, the team, you know, the FX team, the studio, John Singleton's like team who creates the show and everything. Do they have a name? Like, does their studio have a name or something?
I'm not sure of the name. You know, I've seen it a couple times. I don't remember it off the top of my head though.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna have to look into that after. But yeah, they did an amazing job with this episode, and just the way they built up to everything. Like, you know, I give them props. And even though there were a couple like slower episodes in this season, this is what makes it all worth it. Like, when you see these like story elements come together in this way, and like you see these climaxes happen, this is what makes it worth it. So,
and it's funny you mentioned that in particular about the story elements coming together, because if you recall, in episode 1 of this season, they had the nice little father-son moment between Alton and Franklin when he's talking about, yeah, you watching Bruce Leroy growing up as a kid. And it looks like the next episode, well, obviously, I don't know if Alton's going to survive. So this is going to be it's crazy how one episode, the beginning of the season, they were cool. Now by the end of the season, they're totally not. So yeah, that's a crazy dynamic. But you understand why, because you saw everything that led up to that. So
yeah, indeed. So yeah, it's been a crazy journey. So yeah, let's get into some you know, some after discussion here. So first of all, let's ask the question, like, do you think, because you just said it, right? You just said, like, you know, whether Alton, you know, next episode or whatever, like, do you think that Alton is going to be killed in episode 10? Like, do you think it's a wrap for him? Do you think Reed is going to go all the way? Or, you know, could it even be another character who does it? Like, what do you think is going to happen with that?
Well, I will say this. Franklin has a very complicated relationship with his father, Alton. And I feel like that's going to play into what happens with this situation. Now, we saw that Franklin, like you mentioned earlier, he was willing to save Leon. So, you know, you kind of get the sense that he wants to save Alton. But Alton is very, very stubborn. We know that even though he didn't talk with Franklin, when he decided to have this conversation with Irene, before he even entertained that, he never spoke to Franklin at any point to tell him what was happening with that whole situation. So because of that, we know that he's going to do whatever he wants to do, regardless of whether or not it impacts Franklin. For that reason, I would not be surprised if Franklin has to just let it play out. But the thing is the main thing with this whole season, Franklin, from the very beginning, all he had to do was just stay away from what was happening between Scully and Manboy. But he did not. He wanted to get involved with that. And now what's going to happen with Reed and Alton, he's right in the middle of that. And it's not like he can't be involved because he has to interact with both of them. I mean, he doesn't have to interact with Alton, but even then you saw in this episode that he told Alton when Alton came up to that hospital, like, I thought there was about to be a showdown between father and son. So, but I think when push comes to shove, if he feels as though something could happen to Alton, I think he would try and step in to try and protect them, prevent that from happening. But this is why I say it's hard to gauge that, because we've seen their dynamic since the show started. I recall the very first season where Alton, came to the house for a little while. That made Franklin very angry. And then we saw when Franklin had his little altercation with the officers, you saw Alton just walk off in the distance. And then when he got arrested, Alton came to the jail cell to try and say something to him, and that angered Franklin even more. Then when Franklin finally got out, it felt as though they were trying to mend their relationship. So it's hard for me to say whether or not I think that he's going to help Alton. I kind of feel the trailer is misleading, because in that trailer at one point Reed throws the phone down, and then right before that you see Franklin talking about I'm not going to listen to any threats. So it's hard to know, was he talking to Reed at that moment or vice versa, because how they mess around with the trailer. But what I would say, to just give my own guess as to what's going to happen, I think Alton's going to die. Alton said in that trailer, "I will do whatever I can for my family. I would die for what I love." I really believe that, and I believe that yes, he's on his way out. And I think that once that happens, then it's going to get very rocky between Franklin and Teddy. But the question is how it happens. Is Teddy going to actually be the one to kill him, or are they going to pull a swerve and Franklin's going to be the one to kill him? That's what the question is, because I don't really know. But what I do know is that Alton probably isn't going to make it out of this next episode. If he does, it's a situation where either him or Reed dies. I don't think Reed is going to die yet. I really don't think that, because he still has some things left to do. But if I had to make a guess, I think Alton is not going to make it out of next week's season finale.
Yeah, interesting take there. Now, it's hard for, like, okay, I'll save that point I was about to make for the next question. But as far as Alton, yeah, I think we're definitely going to see a major death, to end off the finale, I think. And it has to be somewhat shocking. And like you said, I do believe they might be playing tricks with the trailer. Like, they can be, like, real particular with the editing to make it look a certain way kind of thing. But it's not really like that. We saw that earlier in the season where there was a dream sequence of Franklin holding up the gun to Leon or whatever, you know. So we know they play tricks with the preview sometimes. So I wouldn't be surprised if Franklin is the one to pull the trigger on Alton. So and we get like a whole Ghost gets killed by his son dynamic, but the Snowfall version.
But I think this version probably you totally understand why.
Yeah.
The context of why Franklin would pull the trigger.
Yeah.
That's good though.
Yeah, like so the trailer makes it look like Franklin is going to be opposing Reed, and he's going to be trying to save his father and everything, and that could be the case. We don't know. Maybe he even tries to save his father throughout the episode, but then has a change of heart. Maybe something happens that changes his perspective on things, and then he ends up pulling the trigger. So yeah, this could go many different ways, but if it comes down to like you said, Reed or Alton, definitely Alton is going going to be murdered, because Reed is like the one of the main characters. He's like one of the two main characters in the show, so he's sticking around. And I guess that leads to the next question, because it's directly related. But did you have another point on that?
I just was going to add on something else real quick. I think it would be a lot more dangerous if Reed is killed, because Reed is still a CIA agent. If you just imagine if you was to kill a CIA agent, what could happen as a result of that? And I'm pretty sure that they would really come after Franklin or whoever is responsible if that happens. So that's why it's hard to say, yeah, you don't want to kill off Reed. But at some point, I do feel that if Franklin does cooperate with Reed, either he kills Alton or he allows Reed to just do whatever he's going to do. That is going to definitely start the tension between them two going into eventually when they have a showdown. Because it's going to happen. I feel like that's going to happen for sure. I just don't know if it's going to happen next week or next season. But it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's going to happen. You can kind of feel the tension building, even though they're still cool with each other. Like, you could kind of feel some underlying tension building between them. Like, so yeah, it's definitely going to happen. But, so the next question was basically going to be, do you think, that next season Franklin and Reed will be enemies? And we kind of discussed this a lot, but it's, this episode makes it seem more apparent that that's going to happen. And then of course the previews, whether they're playing tricks on us or not, it makes it seem like that's coming. So for me to answer this question real quick, I want to refer to something we discussed last week, right? Because we had a conversation about whether we think season 5 will be the last season of Snowfall, and one of the points we made was that now that this whole CIA thing is blown up, and it's likely that basically that is going to cause a rift between the two characters, and that once that happens, that's going to lead to the end of the show, because it's like, how much further can you go after that, right? So that was like one of our main points. But somebody in the comments said something interesting, when we posted a clip of that discussion. And they kind of made a point that although Irene published that article, she didn't complete the full objective because she had more planned, right? And we saw the CIA come into the newsroom or whatever to try and, see what's going on, and I guess slow down the story or whatever. So, like, I guess his point was that the story wasn't blown wide open. It's just the what she put out there was the fact that, CIA are allowing drugs to be sold, and, to fund the Nicaragua war or whatever. She put out that information. And of course people associated that with Franklin, so people know Franklin's involvement and stuff in the local area. But the main point is that it hasn't broken nationally on a national scale. So like, it's not like because she didn't blow open the whole story. It's not like a fully fully covered news story across the nation or whatever. So maybe, I guess he's saying that maybe if they get rid of Irene and Alton, there's a chance that they could continue to still doing business, right? And then we can get another season out of it, maybe. So what do you think the likelihood of that is? Like, do you see that being a possibility?
So, yeah, I will say a few things. First and foremost, that's a very good theory, because it definitely would prolong the show a little bit longer. One interesting thing that I have noticed after I watched the episode, because I was actually on Twitter, and you know how now you're able to have the spaces conversations on Twitter? I actually joined a conversation with, it was Aunt Louie, the actress that plays Aunt Louie, and the actor that plays Uncle Jerome. So they was in there, the fans were talking, and you're able to say what you think about the show, give your reactions. And some of the conversations that they had in there, I'm talking about the fans, not the actual actors, because they can't reveal what happens. They were saying that they really like the dynamic between Teddy and Franklin, so they don't want them to be at odds with each other, because it felt like this whole season they were a lot cooler. You saw, Teddy come into the club and just casually have conversations. Obviously, those conversations started to get, a lot more hostile towards the end of the season. because of what's been happening, but it just feel like they have a very cool dynamic, and you like to see them working together. So a lot of people feel that way. I think for that reason, they don't want to see them at odds yet. But as you said, whenever they get at odds and there's tension, I do feel that that's when the show is going to start to come to an end. So the point that was made is a very good point. One thing I will say is that because of this situation that happened with Irene, I 100% believe you're going to see Melody again. Because if you recall, she was one of the first people that she spoke to. So imagine how Melody's response is going to be when she finds out, oh, this lady died. You know that there's more to the story. So that is going to definitely bring that actress, because I know people have been asking, at least from what I've seen online, they've been asking, where is Rain Edwards? She hasn't been on at all this season, only for one episode. I'm pretty sure she's going to make a return. By the way, for those that don't know, she is into music now too. So I'm pretty sure she's busy with all these other things she wants to pursue aside from just acting. But I do feel we'll see her again maybe next season, because now it feels like she helped to try and talk to this lady about what happened. There's no way she's not going to have a reaction to that unless they just decide to go in a completely different direction. So we'll see how that goes. But to answer the question specifically, because I know I had a lot of different things I said, I don't really know what's going to happen between Teddy and Franklin as far as next week. Next season, do I think they could become enemies? Absolutely. And it will be a very interesting dynamic, because if you notice, a couple of seasons, the final shots that happen in the season is a conversation that happens between Teddy and Franklin, because it was last season where Teddy and Franklin had that conversation, and Franklin revealed that he knows that Teddy's a CIA agent, all this other stuff. This is after he got shot and all this other stuff. So, but yet they have still been working together. So I kind of feel like it is going to happen at some point. But next season, I do believe it is going to escalate next season, and it's going to be because of what happens next week in the finale. I'm not saying that I know for sure Reed is going to kill Alton or Franklin is going to kill Alton. That could certainly happen. But whatever happens with Alton, it's going to impact Franklin's relationship with his mom. So that's when things are going to start to unravel, because that's the bigger picture in all of this. You know, she obviously still cares about Alton, did not want to go away with him to Cuba. And the fact that he decided to stay behind, knowing that this is a dangerous situation, means that he is definitely not, I don't feel like he's definitely going to survive that. So, but when that happens, it's going to definitely, because she was already tired. She kept saying that she's tired. She wanted to get out. This is going to make her feel that way even more so, and it's going to cause issues between her and Franklin. So, yeah, I definitely could see this starting to impact Teddy and Franklin moving forward, definitely next season. But we'll see what happens next week.
Yeah, so, because obviously we know that Reed is probably, I don't know if he's like suspended or fired or whatever it is from the CIA. That means Gustavo is in control of, the shipments and everything, and handling all that stuff. But those two characters are still cool with each other, like Reed and Gustavo, so they could still work together, on an unofficial basis, right? And so it really does depend where they go next week, because if Franklin is for getting rid of Alton, and he, and I don't know, it's either going to be Reed, Gustavo, or Franklin who kills Alton if he does die, probably. So it could be any one of those three, right? But and if that happens, like we say, and Alton ends up dead, there is a chance they could continue to do business, right? But I do think that is going to be the start of, like you said, that is going to be the start of the tension. So they might still continue to work with each other into season 5, but we're going to see the rift play out throughout that season, I think. And
that's a good point.
Yeah. And if once Alton dies, like, it's not going to be the same anymore. Like, Franklin isn't going to run the business the same as he did before. Like, now he's going to have to deal with, his mother, she's probably not going to be talking to him, or she's going to be upset, or she might do something, you know, impulsive after that. And then we have to remember as well, the street business is not done with, because Scully is still alive. So,
and
you know,
that actually was, and I just thought of something when you said that about. I know we already mentioned earlier on this podcast that Scully is more than likely going to come after Jerome, maybe even come after Leon. But here's one thing that I just thought of, and it makes perfect sense. So Fatback's people, and the guy that he said that he is now working with Leon, I remember that guy specifically giving Leon and Jerome access to other soldiers, you know, to other people in the crew. But he said if anything happens to them, now it's a problem. So if Scully was to try to come back to the neighborhood, and he saw maybe he went after Franklin, but he didn't quite get Franklin, but he did take out some people that are working with Leon and his crew. I'm going to say Leon, not Franklin. If he went after Leon and he ends up coming after Leon's crew and kills some of them, now that causes issues now, because Fatback's people already said that the guy in charge, I forget his name, he said that he did not want anything to happen to them. So really, Scully has multiple ways he can come after them. He can come after them directly, or he can come after others that are close to them, which is what he was going to do anyway before, but he never did it. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And obviously, like, Scully doesn't have, you know, Manboy's crew to lean on, because Manboy had his own crew. So it's like, you know, I guess Scully has like his own people that he can get to help him or whatever. But this is a man who's lost everything. Like he lost his daughter, he lost his girl, and you know, him and Manboy weren't like 100% friends, but they, you know, because of the death of the you know, the child, they united, and they were working together, right? So but he's lost all of that now, so he is going to retaliate, especially because of the last conversation he had with Khadija, because you know, she was trying to get him to man up, and you know, she wanted him to come with her as well, so he's going to be feeling some sort of guilt that he didn't go, you know, with her. So he is going to retaliate for sure. Like, there's no way he's not going to clap back now. He's been lazy this whole time, like eating cereal and you know, eating pizza or whatever. But but yeah, like now he's going to be like he's going to be an action hero now. Like basically, like he's going to hit the streets. He's going to, you know, he's going to be out for blood now. So and I don't know if they're gonna delay that for season 5. Like, I don't know if we're gonna see that play out next week or not. But I mean, that could be the person who was giving Franklin the threats on the phone or something, you know. So
I will just say this. I think Aunt Louie needs to get out that hospital, because I kind of have a feeling that the season could end with him killing either her or Jerome. And like I said, you know, I obviously, you know, Louis is very vulnerable, is in a very vulnerable position right now, because she's in the hospital. So if he was to show up there, I mean, and just, you know, I mean, I don't think he's going to do that. But again, you don't know. But yeah, if the season was to end that way, like all this time we're talking about, Alta's probably going to get killed, and maybe that is going to happen. But if it ends that way, and then something else happens that Scully does to either Jerome or Louis or someone else, that'll be pretty crazy if that happens. Yeah. Because then that whole thing next season is going to be about, obviously, you know, Franklin's still running the business to some degree, but then you'll have all this other stuff going on. But again, it's hard to really gauge what's going to happen. One thing I do know for a fact is that it doesn't feel to me like Louis is going to, anything is going to happen to Louis yet, because she has to see the impact of what she has done with bringing that business over to Arkansas. Yeah. And that for sure, I know we're going to see next season. I don't think they're going to rush to show us that next week, but next season, because you need some time to pass before you can see how it rips apart the family, because it is going to tear apart that family, that her family that she sent it, that she actually gave the recipe to and everything. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's a lot to dissect. We'll have to wait and see. But something's definitely going to happen with Scully, as you said. It's a matter of time. He's going to take some action.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so thinking about it now, there's a lot they can do with season 5. So I'm definitely excited. I'm excited for the finale and to just to see what the direction is going to be.
Hmm.
There's loads of ways they can go, and I know we had that discussion last week where we said we don't see it going past season 5, but now it's starting to like we're starting to see a way they can kind of extend it because maybe next season could be the rift starting to develop between Franklin and Reed, and then the final season can be like the trials and the conclusion or whatever. So,
Hmm.
um,
And one other last point to make is Franklin doesn't know that Teddy is out now.
mm,
He still doesn't know that information. He thinks Teddy is still the contact, but he hasn't found out about that yet. So I'm curious if he's going to find out next week, or if they're going to continue to work together, because that will that it's a lot to really figure out how they can take that in a different direction. But he doesn't know that information yet. Once he finds out, it's going to be very interesting to see how he reacts to that.
yeah, and you know what? Like the CIA can use Teddy's removal to kill that story. Like they can say, okay, we've dealt with the
Hmm.
situation, we fired the agent who did that, and just keep it moving now. Like, because we
Absolutely.
see that happen all the time in America. Like, a cop shoots black person, and then the media says, oh, this person's been fired when really they've been
Hmm.
transferred to another department or something, and then
Exactly.
everybody forgets. Like everybody moves on. Like so it like they could use that tactic, to kind of kill Irene's story, and then that would just be that. So yeah, there's a that's interesting dynamic, and like you said, if Franklin does find out that Teddy is gone, that gives him a lot of information that he can use as well in
Hmm.
because maybe Teddy might not even tell him. Like Teddy might
Yep.
continue to do business with him and let him think that he's still an active CIA agent or something. But if he knows, then he's got the one up on him. So that would be an interesting dynamic.
Hmm. I
So
agree, 100%.
yeah, so I'm excited, man. I'm excited to see what's gonna happen. Like this. This is a great episode, and this shows like how why Snowfall is one of the best shows out. So
I agree, 100%. Hmm.
yeah. So before we leave, the preview, was there anything else notable? Because we kind of discussed it, but like, was there anything else in there that stood out to you that you think may happen next week?
Well, no, it just looks like it's heavily focused on Franklin, Teddy, and Alton. Um, and of course, Franklin's mother, who was asking, "Where's your father at? Where's your father at?" So it's a very interesting. There's a lot that's going on. Obviously, there's other stuff that's going to happen in that episode. They made sure not to show us that other stuff.
Mm,
So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, it looks like it's going to be very just a lot of tension, a lot of emotion. So I'm curious to see how they're going to go out with a bang for season 4.
yeah, yeah. Likewise. So yeah, if you enjoyed this episode, definitely leave a comment, hit the like button, let us know what you think and everything. And we will be back next week to recap the finale of Snowfall. Very excited for that. We're looking forward to it. But in the meantime, everyone, take care of yourselves. If you can, get the vaccine and everything. Stay safe and everything like that. And just you know enjoy life while you can. So and I hope you have a good week also, Rich.
Thank you,
And
sir. Yes, have a good weekend and the week ahead for sure.
indeed. So yeah, we will be back. Take care, everyone.